morning, everyone, and happy Wednesday. Today we're going to be reading chapter 18, which is on page 118. So if you go ahead and turn your books there. While you turn your books, I'll go ahead and just go over what we read yesterday. So we learned that Litmus Black, Franny's great-grandfather, had fought in the Civil War. He lost all of his family and where he lives, and so he decided to add something sweet into a world that can be sad at times. So he decided to make litmus lozenges. And remember that they said that those lozenges combine sweetness but also sadness. So whenever someone eats it, they might think of sad things that they have gone through. So today in chapter 18, we're going to learn a few more about the characters we have already met, but they're going to be eating those lozenges, and maybe they'll let us know about their sad feelings. So go ahead and turn to page 118 if you haven't already, and we're going to go ahead and get started. When we got to Gloria Dump's, I told her I had 2 surprises for her, and I asked which one did she want first, the small one or the big one. The small one, said Gloria. I handed her the litmus lozenge, and she moved it around in her hands, feeling it. Candy, she said. Yes, ma'am, I told her. It's called a litmus lozenge. Oh, Lord, yes. I remember these candies. My daddy used to eat them. She unwrapped the litmus lozenge and put it in her mouth and nodded her head. Do you like it? I asked her. She nodded her head slowly. It tastes sweet, but it also tastes like people leaving. You mean sad? I asked. Does it taste like sorrow to you? That's right, she said. It tastes sorrowful, but sweet. Now, what's surprise number 2? A book, I said. A book? Uh-huh, I said. I'm going to read it out loud to you. It's called Gone with the Wind. Miss Franny says it's a great book. It's about the Civil War. Do you know all about the Civil War? I have heard it mentioned a time or two, said Gloria, nodding her head and sucking on her litmus lozenge. It's going to take us a long time to read this book, I told her. There are 1,037 pages. Whoo-wee, said Gloria. She leaned back in her chair and crossed her hands in her stomach. We best get started then. And so I read the first chapter of Gone with the Wind out loud to Gloria Dump. I read it out loud enough to keep her ghosts away, and Gloria listened to it good. And when I was done, she said it was the best surprise she had ever had, and she couldn't wait to hear chapter 2. That night, I gave the preacher his litmus lozenge right before he kissed me goodnight. What's this? He said. It's some candy that Miss Franny's great-grandfather invented. It's called a litmus lozenge. The preacher unwrapped it and put it in his mouth, and after a minute, he started rubbing his nose and nodding his head. Do you like it? I asked him. It has a peculiar flavor. Root beer, I said. Something else. Strawberry? That too, but there's still something else. It's odd. I could see the preacher getting further and further away. He was hunching up his shoulders and lowering his chin and getting ready to pull his head inside his shell. It almost tastes a little melancholy, he said. Melancholy? What's that? Sad, said the preacher. He rubbed his nose some more. It makes me think of your mother. Winn-Dixie sniffed at the candy wrapper in the preacher's hand. It tastes sad, he said, and sighed. It must be a bad batch. No, I told him. I sat up in bed. That's the way it's supposed to taste. Litmus came back from the war, and his whole family was dead. His daddy died fighting, and his mama and his sisters died from a disease, and the Yankees burned his house down. And Litmus was sad, very sad, and what he wanted more than anything in the whole world was something sweet. So he built a candy factory and made litmus lozenges, and he put all the sad he was feeling into the candy. "My goodness," said the preacher. Winn-Dixie snuffed the candy wrapper out of the preacher's hand and started chewing it. "Give me that," I said to Winn-Dixie, but he wouldn't give it up. I had to reach inside his mouth and pull him out. "You can't eat candy wrappers," I told him. The preacher cleared his throat. I thought he was going to say something important, maybe tell me another thing that he remembered about my mama. But what he said was, "Opal, I had a talk with Mrs. Dewberry the other day. She said that Stevie says you called him a bald-headed baby." "It's true," I said. "I did. But he calls Gloria Dump a witch all the time, and he calls Otis retarded. And once he even said that his mama said I shouldn't spend all my time with old ladies. That's what he said." "I think you should apologize," said the preacher. "Me?" I said. "Yes," he said, "you. You tell Stevie you're sorry if you said anything that hurt his feelings. I'm sure he just wants to be your friend." "I don't think so," I told him. "I don't think he wants to be my friend." "Some people have a strange way of going about making friends," he said. "You apologize." "Yes, sir," I said. Then I remembered Carson. "Daddy," I said, "do you know anything about Amanda Wilkinson?" "What kind of thing? Do you know something about her and somebody named Carson?" "Carson was her brother. He drowned last year." "He's dead?" "Yes," said the preacher. "His family is still suffering a great deal." "How old was he?" "5," said the preacher. "He was only 5 years old." "Daddy," I said, "how could you not tell me about something like that?" Other people's tragedies should not be the subject of idle conversation. There was no reason for me to tell you. "It's just that I needed to know," I said, "because it helps explain Amanda. No wonder she's so pinch-faced." "What's that?" said the preacher. "Nothing," I said. "Good night, India Opal," the preacher said. He leaned over and kissed me, and I smelled the root beer and the strawberry and the sadness all mixed together on his breath. He patted Winn-Dixie on the head and got up and turned off the light and closed the door. I didn't go to sleep right away. I lay there and thought how life was like a litmus lozenge, how the sweet and the sad were all mixed up together, and how hard it was to separate them out. It was confusing. "Daddy!" I shouted. After a minute, he opened the door and raised his eyebrows at me. "What was that word you said? The word that meant sad?" "Melancholy," he said. "Melancholy," I repeated. I liked the way it sounded, like there was music hidden somewhere inside it. "Good night now," the preacher said. "Good night," I told him back. I got up out of bed and unwrapped a litmus lozenge and sucked on it hard and thought about my mama leaving me. That was a melancholy feeling. And then I thought about Amanda and Carson, and that made me feel melancholy too. Poor Amanda and poor Carson. He was the same age as Sweetie, but he would never get to have his 6th birthday party. Alright, that is the end of chapter 18. We were able to learn more, especially about Amanda and how the sadness that she felt when she ate her litmus lozenge was her missing her brother, remembering what happened to him. And then we also know that the preacher was thinking about his wife leaving him when he was sucking on the litmus lozenge. And what Opal realized is that life is a combination of sweet and sadness. And so what she did at the end was she eventually took on some of the other characters' sadness as well, because she not only thought about her mom, but she thought about Carson. So that, if you remember the word empathy, I think we talked about it a week or two ago. It means to be able to feel what someone else is feeling or understand what they're going through. Opal kind of empathized with Amanda Wilkinson at the end in that she was feeling sad and felt bad about Carson not being there. Alright, so what we're going to do is to go over our vocabulary. So go ahead and get out your packets. And we're just going to do 2 words today. We're going to do numbers 37 and 38. First, we're going to do apologize together. So that's number 38. If we go back in our text and use our context clues, I believe it was on page 124. I'm sorry, the bottom of page 123 into the beginning of page 124. I'm going to read it and see if you can use the context clues to help you figure out the word. I think you should apologize, said the preacher. Me, I said. Yes, he said. You tell Stevie you're sorry if you said anything that hurt his feelings. I'm sure he just wants to be your friend. Alright, so maybe the word apologize is something you have also heard of and maybe even used the term before. If you ever hurt someone's feelings or ever you did something you didn't mean to do, you had to apologize, alright? So think of what it means when someone apologizes to someone, alright? Apologize means to express regret for something you did wrong or you have done wrong, alright? So apologize, to express regret for something you have done wrong. Because remember, in the story, our context clue said the preacher wanted Opal to apologize because she didn't mean to hurt Stevie's feelings. Whew. Sorry, I yawned. Alright, so when we apologize, it's because we regret, which means we wish we didn't do what we had done. And we regret something that might have hurt someone else, that might have broken a rule, alright? So that is the word apologize. The word that I want you to define on your own is the word melancholy. And the word melancholy was used quite a few times in our book. So what I want you to do is go back and use your context clues to see if you can decide what the word melancholy is. The preacher, hint hint,